Hello and welcome to this episode of the Hello Firstname Podcast Season 2. My name is Rasmus Houlind, author of the book Hello Firstname, and the theme of this season is how to solve the content crisis for personalization. Let's dive in. Hi everybody, I'm Rasmus Houlind, author of the book Hello Firstname, and the theme of this season of the Hello Firstname podcast is how to solve the content crisis for truly scalable personalization. So after having data and insights sorted, the content crisis suddenly becomes the next major challenge. So this season we're exploring what the content layer looks like and what that is, from getting master content sorted and onto one-to-one personalization, and how GenAI can make the content pipeline flow more easily. I'd like to remind you that all models discussed in this podcast, including the content layer and the personalization layer, can be downloaded and are free to use. The original book, Hello Firstname, can likewise be downloaded as either the full audiobook or as a written abstract. I'll put a link to everything in the show notes. Also worth mentioning is that the podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, the omnichannel marketing automation platform Agilic. Could it be the MA platform best suited to tackle the content crisis of personalization? Judge for yourself. Visit www.agilic.com for more information. So, on to today's guest, Tom Burrell. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Pleasure to have you here on the Hello Firstname podcast.
Great to be here, Rasmus. Thanks for the invite.
You've built an impressive career, which is why I invited you, around customer retention, especially from working at DAZN to leading CRM efforts at like TalkTalk and Manchester United, even 11 years agency side. You've taken a step now into your own consultancy retention coach. With your own words, how would you describe sort of this career of yours?
Yeah, look, yes, I spent like 5 years in telcos as an analyst at the start of my career, then 11 years in agencies. As you said, I was global CRM director at Digitas and one of the big publicist groups, and executive strategy director as well for the Middle East, part of London, part of Middle East. And then as you said, senior client side roles at Man United and TalkTalk, and most recently at DAZN, where I spent 3 years as SVP of retention, a team of about 50 people across multiple different disciplines, retention strategy, customer value management, some other work in the products, CRM technology, etc. Yeah, so I in the start of 24, I set up Retention Coach, which is independent, one person, retention strategy consultancy,
agile consultancy,
very agile, yeah, and it's been a great year. Like, we're recording this in December. It's been a great year, really enjoyable, and some great clients and enjoying it.
Yeah, I think with that track record, you have so much practical experience with retention. So I'm really eager to sort of dive into how does that converge with personalization, and how does it converge with like content strategies and GenAI and so on. So really interested in hearing your perspectives on a lot of things.
Perfect, yes.
On LinkedIn and in your newsletter, you've already shared some, and you are on an ongoing basis sharing a lot of good insights on how personalization plays a role in retention as well. And that's actually, given the theme of the podcast here, obviously that's sort of where I would like to start the conversation today. But before we go into that, why focus on retention at all? So many businesses are laser focused on acquisition and growing the customer database, acquisition, paid media. Why do you believe it's so important for companies to focus on retention?
So look, I think, my business services all sectors, but particularly into the subscription sector and particularly retention teams across multiple sectors. And when you think about subscription businesses specifically, retention is key to growth, right? So like, if you miss your acquisition target, so say, look, do some really simple math, right? So you've got 100% of your customers and you're expecting like 10% churn over the following year. And then you factor in 10% growth, that would mean you'd need like 20% acquisition budget to get to the 110% number. If you miss your retention targets by 10% and you only have 80% of the customers that you had at the start of the year instead of 90, suddenly your acquisition targets are like 50% higher. And a 50% higher acquisition target means that you're kind of going out to a broader market, right? Which is higher CAC. So what I've seen like repeatedly is that in organizations that over prioritize acquisition and don't invest enough in retention, it's not always a 1-for-1, but don't invest enough in retention, then they can really suffer, right? Because if they do miss those targets, then the budget required to get to the end of year number becomes sometimes unsustainable because of the increased investment. And then whatever happens, even if you can still hit that target, you reduce profit because you have to spend more to get to the same number.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen as well multiple different subscription businesses is like an under investment in retention, and like my why, and which is crazy for the kind of the reasons that I just explained.
Yeah.
So my why is really to help retention teams and subscription leaders be more effective in their business and roles, and help their organizations to be more successful.
It feels as if there's a lot of retention leaders actually not realizing the impact of their work, or like stepping up for it, or saying, this is what I contribute, this is so important. So do you see they're having sort of a hard time defending themselves or justifying what they're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Like, I mean, it's difficult, right? Like, quite often CMOs come from like a brand or performance background, and particularly performance now. I think Forrester says over 50% of CMOs come from an acquisition performance background, and you kind of understand that because all the money's been placed in that space, right? They're spending millions and millions on acquiring new customers. Then you need somebody in that level who's going to be, understand the nuance of how to invest. But it quite often means that there's a lack of understanding at that senior level of how to be successful and how to be effective in retention. And I know in some organizations I've seen like the organizational retention is left to like a CRM team that is only focused on operations and tech, right? And I do agree with the point you made as well in the question, in that I think sometimes people in those retention roles, because they're not prioritized, it becomes self-fulfilling. They don't believe they're a priority, and they don't believe that what they do is a priority. And then, but in actual facts, like retention is so critical, and particularly in subscriptions, but in all types of businesses, right? To drive growth. I've
seen like full CRM teams like getting obliterated because the manager that took over didn't have a heart for CRM, but was more like a paid media type. So definitely see where you're coming from.
Yes,
we're trying to sort of examine or double click on the intersection or the convergence between retention and personalization.
Yeah.
So from your experience, given the many years within retention marketing or retention, why do you think personalization has such a crucial role in customer retention?
So personalization is really important, right? Because like the way in which if you can improve retention, say in a subscription business by 5 to 10%, then you can drive up to a doubling of profit. It's in the range of like 25 to 100% increase in profit.
That's massive.
It's massive, right? Yeah. Huge, right?
Yeah.
But 5 to 10% reduction in churn or improvement in retention, like for some businesses, that would seem like quite a big challenging number. But actually, the way in which you kind of achieve that is you identify the key moments of truth in the relationship. So whether that's onboarding, or whether that's when usage declines, or whether that's specific service issues, or the cancellation journey. And then you can optimize those moments of truth by like 1, 2, 3%. Sometimes there's bigger opportunity in particular moments of truth, say for onboarding, for example. And what really makes the difference in terms of driving that uplift in retention is like applying proven methodologies. Like, so in onboarding stage, one of the key things to remember is, which many brands forget, is the customer's not sold, particularly on a monthly anytime plan. They're still evaluating you. And so in onboarding, you need to continuously resell the benefits, use social proof, demonstrate the value that others have got, help them to get to a benefit really quickly.
Yeah.
But to do that really well and to resonate really well, and you need to leverage personalization. Right. So I'll give you an example just in onboarding. Is
like best churn prevention is normally a really good onboarding.
Exactly. It's 100%. It really is. And so Hypnotherapy mobile app that I work with, so they their clients, their customers come in seeking to solve a specific issue, right? It's like a crisis type situation. They've got a problem with anxiety, or the public speaking, or the
hypnotherapy.
Yeah, hypnotherapy. Exactly.
Yeah, hypnotherapy.
Yeah. And so what we do in the onboarding journey is we tailor the messaging according to the treatment that the customers come in for.
Yeah.
And then also we use social proof. So that's like customer success stories of using the app to overcome that issue. And so when we did that, we saw 10% lift in retention, right? For that, just for that specific stage, because
That's
it's
a lot.
really, really personalized to that
Yeah.
specific customer, right? So, and and relevant, and it's showing them how they can get like real value. It's like somebody else has got this, has achieved the goal that you're seeking to achieve. So
they sign up and they say, I have a problem with whatever, smoking, or eating too much sugar.
Yeah.
And then before they book their first session, they're getting sort of information about how others have benefited from this. How does it work?
So it's like it's an app, right? So you can go in, you sign up to subconsciously, you can take a free trial, or you can and once you get through that free trial, you can start listening to hypnosis straight away. And people come in for a problem. That's why they come in. And so when we see that they've come in for anxiety or they've come for public speaking, then we share push notes with them, email marketing that's relevant to that, with that kind of customer success story, that testimonial that really conveys the benefit of the product. And without that, like there was a 10% like incremental lift on early life retention through the deployment of that program. And it's because it's personalized. It's because it's using like behavioral science, like emotional and social proof, and it's relevant to what you're there for, right? It's not generic messaging on how to use the app. It's like really tailored to what your problem is. So personalization at every single moment of truth is absolutely critical.
So you'd have like multiple variants of say that's like an onboarding flow or onboarding journey. You'd have multiple variants of the messages within that, depending on like whatever problems people are trying to solve with it.
Yeah, I mean we haven't got to the stage yet where we've got one for every treatment. No, we've got there's over 100 treatments on the app. So so the journey's like to get that loads of different testimonials, but we've got it for the top 10. So that's where we see the impact. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful segue into, what I call the content crisis. 100 different reasons for getting into hypnotherapy. The content crisis manifesto that I shared with you, and also that the audience can download by following the link in the show notes, discusses the challenge of creating and managing personalized content at scale. How do you see this crisis sort of playing out in customer retention? You partially answered that already. But especially when it comes to balancing content personalization with the need to manage so many customer touch points. And when do you do different variants, and how do you balance all that out when it comes to retention?
Yeah, look, I think look, you'll know, right? We've had the ability to create micro clusters in MarTech for like 20 years. And like this dream of one-to-one personalization has been talked about and sold by vendors to many clients for many, many years, right?
Yeah, the dream at least.
the dream, exactly, the dream. And I think like some retailers did a good job of like delivering one-to-one personalization, like Tesco, and obviously Amazon is kind of the benchmark of that, right? In terms of the way in which they've executed that within.
At least with content feeds and deals and offers and products.
Exactly. Content feeds and products, exactly. And streamers have done that as well, and we did it at DAZN, and so it's like delivering a tile to a particular cohort. But I think like to what I was talking about before in that example from subconsciously, like it only goes so far, right? Like you can't engage beyond like the product listing and the price. But I don't think we're quite there yet, and I think your work talks a lot about this in terms of the content layer, but I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of being able to leverage AI, generative AI, to scale that level of hyper personalization yet. But what I've seen is it's about to happen, right? Next year we will have that capability. And there's a lot of brands, tech brands, that are going to be building.
Next year is the year of personalization.
I think so, without a doubt.
Someone said for 10 years, but still, I think it actually might be it.
It actually might be, right? Next year,
we'll have it.
Yeah, next year. And I've seen demos of like CRM marketing journeys, delivered with the prompts, with all of the content and the imagery personalized to the individual cohort. And then other brands are talking about in the near term being able to send customers on individualized journeys, different sequences of interactions, and then different messages according to those sequences, and then like self-learning within the AI, and and Sam Altman talks about, he thinks that AGI will be next year, right? And then maybe 2030 super intelligence, right? So like it's kind of there's a lot happening, and I think it's we're finally, I think, at a point in history where actually we might be able to
Yeah.
deliver on the personalization promise that
Yeah.
MarTech has been able to deliver, like from a data perspective, for many years.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So I mean, I'm always in my mind. I think this is damage you get when you write a book or when you do a model. I've always like since I published Hello Firstname, I've always thought of the bow tie of personalization, and everything seemed to scale using like classic AI. So you could scale the way that you're calculating your segments, or even how you're defining them. You can scale sort of the moment of truth thing, like with propensity scoring and so on. You can scale the one-to-one personalization of your content feeds, as in product feeds or shows or
Yeah.
articles or whatever it is that you have in feeds. But the messages as such we haven't been able to scale them until now. But now I see that there's still a lot of QAing to be done. I think QAing is going to be like super huge until we're at a point where we have the equivalent of self-driving cars within marketing. We can finally, we're okay with the risk of letting the AI, GenAI, run on autopilot. To some extent, we'll be busy QAing another AI agent, to actually make sure that the other generative agent doesn't sort of run outside the guardrails.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's the difference, right? So, you can get set up to be able to deliver like hyper personalized content if you're a newspaper title, or if you're a retailer, or if you're a streamer, and they have done that for years. And that's like how Netflix is successful with so much content. 80% of content on Netflix is consumed from a recommendation. Like, you'll know that. But if you want somebody to do something at a moment of truth in the context of retention, then you can't just serve them a content module or a tile, right? You need to connect with them emotionally, right? You need to push their buttons, and you need to kind of connect with them in a way that motivates action. So
I never get a content feed that really pushes me emotionally.
No, exactly. It's all quite bland, right? Really bland. And I think one of the like a great example probably of this would be at DAZN. Like, we really tried to do this. Yeah, we weren't able to, but we tried to. In that, we knew that we had a cohort of customers that were like a Juventus fan, right? They were a Juventus soccer fan.
Yeah.
But they had a propensity, or they maybe have sent a signal that they might be interested in water polo, right? So they've maybe watched water polo for 5 minutes and then turned it off, or they look like somebody who likes water polo, right? It's based on their behavior.
You probably need to explain what DAZN does and is and was, or
of course. So DAZN is a sports streaming brand, a very household name in Spain, Italy, Germany, and in Japan, and then smaller in other markets, primarily focused on boxing.
So water polo was one of the sports.
Yeah, one of the sort of like the long tail of sports that are on the platform, and so if you were in Italy and you're a Juventus fan, and you've shown a signal that you might be interested in water polo, then like, to get somebody to actually consume that content, you can't just serve them a tile and tell them that water polo's on tonight, right? You need to engage with them in a way that like really touches their or pushes their buttons. So, for example, you could talk about there's a local star in the team from Turin, for example, or you could talk about like the fact that Italy have beaten Croatia 5 times in a row, and this is an exciting big game. Or you need to think and test across different cohorts, like different emotional messaging in order to trigger interaction. And I think that's what the promise of Gen AI is, and these autonomous agents working from a brief, connected to all elements of the stack, being able to continuously test and learn against different cohorts, and then deliver this kind of resonant, personalized content that connects to the audience's motivation to act. And that engagement is one example, like, to drive usage. But like the way that Gen AI can be used to kind of leverage behavioral science within at moments of truth, like, has a huge amount of promise for retention. I think there's a big opportunity waiting to be tapped into by brands that can leverage that capability.
I think it's a really good distinction. The thing about, if you want to move someone into doing something that isn't entirely what they wanted to do, or you want to basically convince someone, then you need to play on emotions. And product feed personalization really doesn't do that. I've yet to see like a content feed or product feed recommendations that make you go, wow, oh, that really hit the spot. I said no one ever with a content feed.
No, exactly.
So really, that's where the messages come in. That's where you want to play on all the emotional, all the emotional triggers. And I think the irony is that we as human beings, because we want to address people's emotions and we want to make it personable, as my friend David Mannheim, he says personalization is also always about making things personable, or at least that's how he believes it should be. And the irony is that we need AI to make it become more personable.
It's ironic, isn't it? Yeah,
It is. Yeah, this is like our past catching up on us, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really ironic and maybe a bit sad, but I mean, I'll reap the benefits nonetheless. Not trying to judge here.
Yeah. No
All right.
doubt.
Behavioral science. You mentioned behavioral science, and I think prepping for this also we had this discussion about. I mean, when you're really trying to sort of stir up those emotions, are we talking about potential gains that you could benefit from something? But there's also the idea of loss aversion. And how does personalization tap into sort of this principle? I mean, if you want to encourage customers to reconsider, for instance, like a cancellation decision, or I mean, how can personalized messages leverage like psychological principles to make retention efforts feel more genuine?
Yeah, definitely. That's what that's what we're talking about really when we're talking about emotional connection, right? It's like leveraging behavioral science, and Daniel Kahneman has shown that we use kind of two sides of the brain. Like we as humans always think that we consider every action that we take, and everything that we do is thought through. But actually, there's just two types of decisions. There's those that are very slow and considered, and like you're buying a house or you're going to buy a car, and they are properly thought through decisions. But then the other side, although we think we're considering all aspects of the decision, we just make automatic decisions, and leveraging behavioral
justify them in hindsight with
exactly
arguments.
Exactly. You support, you post rationalize basically. And loss aversion in the cancellation journey is a perfect example, right? Everyone would be familiar with the idea that most people, I would imagine, are more people are more motivated by what they will lose than what they will gain, right? So, and this is like really important in the cancellation journey, right? So in a cancellation journey, you really need to make customers ponder the decision. So it's not about putting too much friction in place. If you put too much friction in place, like make them call or speak to an agent or something,
hide the button, hide the phone number,
or don't even have a cancellation flow. Make them dig it out. They get FAQs. That just causes a lot of resistance. And if you've got like a monthly cancel anytime product, customers don't come back off the back of that, right? They have a very negative experience and they lose all trust in you. Then at the other end of the scale, like making it super easy, right? Big button. It's also like
please cancel by clicking here.
Yeah, exactly. Just cancel by clicking it. It's like you're just leaving money on the table if you do that, right? So the key is to get customers to ponder the decision, and get customers to ponder the decision by leveraging loss aversion. So what will they miss? And then you can also then incentivize that with maybe a discount on extended terms. So like the way in which I think,
but the one-click cancellation is coming like from legal perspective, isn't it? I mean, I think I saw that from one of your posts.
Two clicks.
2 clicks. Oh, thank God. Saved off by one.
So I mean, in the US, you've got the cancellation journey has to be aligned to the onboarding journey. In Germany, the law the EU directive that's been enacted there is like 2 clicks. Same in France. But nevertheless, like
what does that mean for the timing of the pondering? I mean, ideally, I would then make people ponder about the potential loss before I had to present them with a 2-button.
I mean, you've got to do it. You've got one shot, really, haven't you? Right. So they click to start the cancellation journey. They've got the page with the content on it, and then they're cancelling. So it's that one shot that you've got to kind of keep them. And I think, like thinking about, say, like let's take like a gym or gym membership, for example. Like, if someone's going to cancel the gym membership, like it might be just a logistical thing. It might be like that they've moved house, so they don't need to go to that particular gym. But aside from that, like to motivate the customer to stay, you need to understand why they joined in the first place. Like, are they giving up on that dream of the 6-pack? Are they giving up on themselves, actually? Like, if they were told to go to the gym because of health and they've just not managed to go, are they like, so, or were they annoyed? Like, did something happen in the context and they're going to like another gym around the corner because they didn't get the service that they expected? Like, so if you can understand and use that data within the context of that cancellation flow, then you can create loss aversion in a way that kind of more readily taps into what originally motivated them to come. And then not only that, like within the context of personalization, you can also personalize the discount that you give to the cohort based on their lifetime value. And so you can end up with like, a one-page journey that can become quite bespoke, but much more effective at retaining customers.
But that also means that like the pondering or the prepping for the pondering or it starts with you asking questions when people onboard. I mean, collecting the zero-party data. Why did you join in the first place? What do you intend to get out of this? And sort of what are your preferences and whatnot? And then using sort of that, maybe even before people even come to like considering whether they should cancel or not. So if you manage to get people engaged, and if they are going to the gym like regularly and working out, they're probably also feeling the benefits of it, and thus they will never think about using the cancellation button. So again, back to like best churn reduction. I mean, this is best onboarding, really.
It is 100%. Onboarding is absolutely critical, without a doubt. And then when you see like usage, wane, drop, then like how do you tackle that and like kind of get them back to more regular usage? But yeah, totally agree. You
mentioned something about like time to value, trying to shorten time to value during onboarding. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so like in the context of onboarding, right, there's lots of key things that you need to do. So one is resell the benefits, which we talked about before, right? Because the customers have just joined your product or your service, then you need to realize that they're not sold at that point. They're in the evaluation stage. They're a lot warmer, and they've even given you some of their money, but they're not sold on being a long-term customer. So that's the key thing. In some businesses as well, it's really important to get them to a result fast. So thinking about like B2B SaaS, for example, I think I've seen some research that said customers need to get to a result within 7 minutes in B2B SaaS, right? Like, so thinking about like tools like Canva or tools like that, like as soon as you pay the subscription, you need to be getting value immediately, right? So
I love Canva. Definitely getting some shares for the IPO.
Yes, Canva's great tool. Yeah, absolutely. And so like early life, it's really important. And then you'll also need to do things like in early life also potentially like tackle the alternative philosophies or dial up the emotional payoff of the subscription, right? Not just the service or the product, like dial up what the customer's going to benefit from that. And you can use like personalization to understand like the motivations. And I think the promise of like data and GenAI executed within the content layer and like always on A/B testing driven by AI gives you a huge opportunity to be able to think about like really, really bespoke onboarding journeys that really translate into better outcomes for businesses, right? And for customers ultimately.
Yeah. So GenAI. So I mean, where do you think it will make the most impact for doing personalized retention strategies?
I think, look, it's going to have an impact across the board, isn't it? But I mean, the most impact will be at those moments of truth, and the moments of truth are dependent on your specific business. Like you said, like often it's onboarding in a subscription business because if you can get customers using the product regularly, but also like service issues. If there's a service issue, how is that handled? And then how do you respond? Like there's the old adage about you never had the customer who didn't have a problem at all is less loyal than the customer who had a problem, but that problem was solved well, right? That's true as well, and that's proven time and time again, right? So how do you handle issues and leveraging data and personalization to deliver on that? The cancellation journey we talked about, usage declines. I think there's a lot of opportunities to leverage it across the life cycle, but particular moments of truth.
I mean, I realize that GenAI is still fairly new. I mean, in fact, it was. I decided rather quickly after launching Hello Firstname that because this came out around the same time as ChatGPT went big, so I sort of missed the timing there, which was a bit annoying. On the other hand, so I quickly decided that I wanted to do an update with GenAI, and I was looking for cases, and I couldn't find any. Really, but I mean, have you like over the course of the year? I don't think there's much more time where you could have had one. Do you have any example from your experience where GenAI like played a role in automating personalized content in like a retention context?
Not yet, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I mean, we have when I was at DAZN, as I said, we built the hyper personalized engine. We weren't able to add that emotional layer into it. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like AI has actually been around for like 20 odd years, but everyone's sort of woken up to the potential with Gen AI through ChatGPT in the last sort of 2 years or so. And but I still think we're sort of like high school student stage, but very, very quickly it's going to progress dramatically. And I think as a result of where we're at, and you see people write LinkedIn posts with AI, or you see like crap emails that have clearly been written with AI, then people underestimate like what's coming. And I think with what the vendors are building in terms of these fully automated journeys, I think it's really important that like if you're a retention manager, a CRM manager, that you really lean into AI and like focus on, like, I think the two key aspects are a strategy, like, because if you don't understand like how you're going to trigger desired behaviors, or how you're going to how you're going to prioritize the moments within the relationship that drive key outcomes, then you're not going to be successful in writing prompts to get the AI to deliver the solution that you want to deliver, right? And also, when the AI does deliver like a fully automated journey, you're not going to be in the position to be able to assess it. So so strategy is absolutely fundamental. Tool usage, ability to kind of understand how to click buttons and write SQL and AMP and all of that. I personally don't believe that's going to be very important in a few years, because it'll all be automated. So strategy, prompting, and then I think, but what I do believe is that you can't let AI take over creativity 100%. And that's where I think you talk a lot about in your work as well. Like, what you feed the content layer, your everything you know about the company, like the products, the audiences, the motivations, like, so that it feels
the idea of the brand LLM that Franz and I.
Exactly. So what you and Franz are talking about, the brand LLM, exactly. And then that LLM will then drive like content creation. But I still think that to drive that brand LLM, you need creative people, right? There's this idea that I've heard others talk about, with this idea of like a positionless marketer, where you can have like a marketer that does everything, like does content creation, creative strategy, tooling, and there's definitely a possibility for that. But I still believe in like bigger organizations, at least, you're still going to need like senior creative folk that can really understand how I can connect the brand to the audience, and then they should be briefing and instructing the LLM. And then like your retention manager, who's like brilliant at retention strategy, is like assessing the output of the journeys that are created, and then the actual messaging and the content and the quality of the imagery, because the imagery is not quite there yet, really, is it? I mean, Mid-Journey is pretty good, but it's a little way to go.
You can do some things, but I mean, like expand the background or exchange the background or whatever. That seems to be working, but like generating images from scratch, I mean, at least I've seen some horrible examples. Actually, I have a fun anecdote, because I was doing a talk about how GenAI would sort of affect marketing automation and personalization. And I was using it like a fitness example, as you also mentioned briefly before. And I was trying to use Mid-Journey to paint me an image of a young man, Nordic-looking man, who was like doing bench presses or whatever. And it looked really well until I counted the arms, and there was at least one arm too many. And actually, when I look closer, he also had the bar between the neck, and I don't know how you bench press, but that's not how I do it. And so I was like, so I used it to prove the point that imagery isn't there yet. And someone came up to me in the break and said, I mean, you were using Mid-Journey version X, and now we're at X+1. So just have a look at this. I used it just to generate these images using somewhat the same prompt as you did, and we quickly agreed that it looked much better. Until like 10 minutes afterwards, like he sent me a notification saying, I just recounted the arms on that picture we both agreed was better, and there was still like one arm too many. And definitely not there yet. And also think that I can use a text that's 80% done. I can QA it, and if I'm skilled enough as a copywriter and I know sort of the intention of our founder or whatever, I mean, what's in the brand LLM, I can sort of tweak it into what I believe I can use. But it takes more skill to take an image that is like 80% okay. Because, so how do I delete an extra arm from an image? I mean, I may be able to prompt that, but it's also a weird thing. I mean, how much do you need to sort of re-prompt for? So it's just a lot of work still. And
I think it's like, we're on the cusp of being able to do this, right? And that's where I think people need to be ready and be leading in. Yeah. So like, instead of like sort of looking at the LinkedIn post that's written by a guy who's just copied it out of ChatGPT, or looking at the crap image that someone's
It
posted on
reads
Instagram.
like stock photo looks, right? I mean,
exactly. It reads like stock photo looks, and also, you know, you see imagery that's just like really poor quality, and the language, you know, the words don't make sense because they've just done it in DALL-E 3 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
like I think that creates like an environment where people are like, oh, AI won't take over what we're doing. But actually, like, this is advancing at such rapid pace. And, you know, to listen to people like Sam Altman and others like talking about, you know, artificial general intelligence being available by the end of next year, right? Then these kind of like basic problems that we've got with imagery and are going to go away. And actually, copy wise, you can do it now. Really, you just got to get the kind of tone of voice right within your setup, and you can create great copy that's on brand. So I think there's I think that we're it's a very exciting time. It's almost like fourth web in a way, right? I think there's a lot that's about to happen, and I think, you know, if you're a retention person or CRM marketer, then you got to lean in, right? You've got to really learn this stuff and focus on be awake to what's coming in the future, right?
And is that what you see coming? Is that, if you think about content and the like personalization in customer retention, is GenAI the next big thing for retention, or do we have other stuff that we need to tackle first? Or how do you see that sort of?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think GenAI is definitely the next big thing in retention, the content layout, you know, all the stuff that you've talked about. But obviously, a lot of brands still struggle with like the basics. Like, we've had the ability to get a data in order like for a long time, but still lots of brands struggle with that. So you do need to get that right. I think CD piece and that market has really helped marketers get access to the data that they need. But
much more commoditized today.
Much more commoditized, and it's getting better, and we're in a better place in terms of data than we've ever been, right, in human history. But yeah, so if you know, lots of brands can get their data in order. So if you do get your data in order, I think, you know, really soon GenAI is going to play a massive role. And I mentioned it before, like, you know, these automated journeys where the machine is learning based on an individual customer's profile, like what the sequence of channels should be, like what behavioral science technique to use, like what emotion to dial up, like talking like the founder, because it's leveraging the content layer, you know, like this is where we're going. And I think it will take people by surprise, to be honest. Like, I think it's going to be a lot faster than people expect. But probably the limiting factor of execution or implementation will be humans. Right, I think Francis said this as well, right? It's
I was about to ask you, and we didn't prep for this, so this is completely off the bat. So, as a like retention strategist, which skills should I build or emphasize, or should I try and acquire if I'm a retention strategist for the future? How do you see sort of the skill palette evolve for retention strategists?
Yeah, I mean, I think retention strategy is quite a broad role. There's not always that title actually in a lot of organizations. So if you think about like more of a CRM person, for example, like a CRM marketer, they are there's different types of CRM marketer in different organizations, but some of them are like very tool focused and they're very executionally focused. They take briefs from other areas of the business and they execute. They're like operations folk, and configuring the communications and the platform, etc., etc. If I was one of those people, I would be really, really dialing into strategy and making sure that they understand strategy, because I don't think those kind of roles are going to be around very much longer. If you look like in the next 2 or 3, maybe 5-year time horizon, they're not going to be needed. So I think that the key skills really is to understand how you craft retention strategies or CRM marketing journeys that like really resonate with customers. And like there's proven principles that have been shown, like through my experience, through multiple brands around the world, where do things like an onboarding, resell the benefits, get the customer to result fast in cancellation, make them ponder the decision, but don't add too much friction. Like in usage, think about how you can trigger re-engagement. Like think about how you handle service issues, and some are more than important than others. Like all of these are like proven methodologies for driving retention.
And CRM marketers need to Like
they need
really
to
be down with those.
really understand that, and then
Yeah.
the techniques to execute against them, like using like behavioral science, like understand that in a lot of detail, so that when the time comes when you're writing a prompt and you're delivering an entire journey, or you're giving a brief to a machine to deliver loads of bespoke journees,
Yeah.
then you're able to assess the output and make okay, actually probably don't want to use exclusivity there, or maybe this is a good time to use reciprocity bias, or like different, so that you can then like enhance the output of the AI. And and I think some creative people are absolutely doing this, like they're leaning in, but some are a bit resistant. I think you've got to lean in. Like there's going to be a lot of change in that space, like in terms of asset production, and I think the people that will continue with their careers in creative production will be people that have become well versed in AI and prompting and working with AI rather than resisting against it. Yeah, but you still need those creative skills. You still need the ability to understand a market, audience, brand, create a proposition, and then feed the LLM.
And luckily, a lot of online courses exist for this. Am I right?
Oh yes,
I think you just launched an online course offering that addresses, I don't know, parts of this, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some sort of basic guidance on prompting in there, like how to get good quality output out of tools like Midjourney and ChatGPT. Like,
I think more in terms like serum strategies and what's up and down, and I mean,
yes,
really
exactly.
the strategy part.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got like there's 11 modules to my new course, which launches in January. So it's part of it's, but there's one on prompting, but the majority of the course is strategy. Yeah, so there's like modules on behavioral science, and there's techniques for onboarding and customer love, and how you measure and all of that. Yeah.
And I think in general, like looking at it from like serum marketer that's more tool focused, I think in general, I mean, the AI will come to the tools, so it doesn't take the job away, but I think the role is changing much more towards QAing and assessing something that's already built.
Yes.
And adjusting it and making sure that it follows the strategy that is set, as opposed to building things from scratch.
Exactly.
So here at Gillig, we're looking into like really how can we focus our strategy, also our product strategy, on really where the insights meet the content, which is basically the knot in the bow tie of personalization, and leaving segment variants and channel variants to a later stage. Because essentially what I want to do as a manager, as I say, I want to define these people that I want to give this message. And so which channel would you like to send that through? I mean, whatever channel is applicable for each and every customer. Okay, yeah. And how do you want to convey that message? Well, every way that it makes sense for the receiving customer. And I think that's becoming trivial, or it's becoming commoditized. And that's where I see GenAI can really help us. You know, if we craft the core of the message with all the emotional stuff that we have, I think GenAI can help us repurpose that into the exact use cases that we are seeing, what the customer will eventually see.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think often people are taught like CRM marketing is right time, right message, right channel.
Yeah.
But actually, no, I think, as you've written about as well, like sometimes, of course, with push channels you can, but you can't always control when customer arrive at a channel, right? So you've got to make sure that exactly. You got to make sure that the message is open and can be accessible by different channels according to the to the kind of interaction that the customer has, or in the case of like AI deciding the journey in terms of the sequence that's the most effective for the customer, if you're thinking on a push perspective. So like insight meeting content is like, that's what the future is, right?
Like, that's what we spoke now about what the CRM marketers should be doing, or the CRM strategists. But like lifting that up even further, like from a brand perspective, what do you think brands should be doing now to prepare for this future with GenAI and everything's being automated, and tighter focus on strategy and maybe a brand element?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think in terms of the brand teams, like, I mean, I still believe that there's going to still be a role for like a brand strategist. There's going to be a role for a creative director to understand like the direction of the brand, or whether you do in-house or with an agency. How do you kind of resonate with different cohorts of customers? And I believe that still will be required. We're going to still need like high quality human creative people that are able to set that overarching direction.
Yeah.
But what probably happens is a lot of the people that are doing all the production below them, that no longer exist, or you have a couple of people that are like AI prompters that produce the assets and they scale to thousands of assets. But that senior level, like brand strategist, creative director role, and maybe there's a few of them, depends on the size of your organization, is still going to be really important, right? Because you need that human lens to think about how you can create at a macro level a brand that connects with your audiences.
Yeah.
And then that feeds the LLM. So then you can create like 1,000 assets in a second that are relevant to that positioning.
Exactly. So all the repurposing. So basically, if you've got sort of your brand LLM set straight, you have all your brand assets, you have sort of the intention of the founder, and I mean the core value proposition of who you want to be for whom. And from that, basically, GenAI can help you derive loads of assets, not only for the brand-led content and for the static assets and for your website and your app and so on, but also for the customer-led content. So what is it that will drive Tom to renew his subscription on hypnotherapy? Or
exactly 100%. Yeah, that's where we're going, I think. And of course that will mean like consolidation in marketing for sure. There'll be some contraction in roles, and there'll be some different roles. But yeah, I think we've got to lean into that. Everyone's got to lean into that. There's no point in resisting it. You resist it, you get left behind.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, let that be the second but one. The last but second question. Last question but one. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It's been a great conversation. I always ask this question in the end of the episodes here. What's your own favorite example of GenAI being used? It doesn't have to be in retention or personalization, but just in general, what was the most mind-boggling way that you saw it used, or the most fun? Or
well, look, I'm just excited about the future. To be honest, I follow what Sam Altman says a lot, and I'm kind of quite interested in that. And this idea of AGI by the end of this year is pretty exciting. Like, leveraging AI agents that talk to each other across your stack.
AGI, you may need to spell that out for the audience.
Artificial general intelligence, basically AI that's as intelligent as adult human. But what I'm really excited about is he also said by 2030 he sees the rise of superintelligence. So perhaps we'll be able to discover the secrets of space-time, right? That's pretty exciting.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Like, why are we here? Thinking about like how all of the like thousands of PhD level geniuses that are the equivalent of what this like super intelligence will provide. I think that's what gets me most excited to see how this technology can really just progress humanity, actually, but like outside of marketing.
I mean, somehow it makes us more conscious of what it is to be human. Ironically, I mean, so right now I'm down to, I'm the only one who can tell which squares include a bicycle in a captcha code, and that should prove that I'm human. But where are we in like 2 years' time, and can we tell? And what is it really to be human? Is it having an intention? Maybe it's because there's something we want, and the AI, basically it doesn't want anything. It's just waiting there for our intention to be put in. Is that what we'll end up having? I mean, is that the only thing we'll be able to, or we need to put in at some point, and we'll be, I don't know, drinking martinis the rest of the time?
I think what you said there is really interesting, isn't it? Like the rise of AI makes us think more about what it means to be human. I think that's and it's sort of ironic, really, isn't it? It's I think it's that's
truths are found in contrasts, I think.
Yes.
And anyway, we don't know where this is going to take us, but I know what we just went through, and this was an extremely interesting talk, Tom. Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss retention and GenAI with me.
Thanks so much, Rasmus. I really enjoyed that. It was a really great conversation to talk with you and to be on this podcast. Thank you.
And for the audience, I just say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to this or watching it. If you're watching it on YouTube, we didn't share a lot of models today, but this podcast is based on the backgrounds of the Hello Firstname book, and you can indeed download the full audiobook. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. There's also the Content Crisis Manifesto, which is really sort of a background for the conversations that we're having here. It includes the content layer and the personalization layer and the data layer models that I did together with my co-author Frans Riemersma. That's also available as a download, and that is like the whole idea of this season is actually to build up for a re-edit of the book, which is turning out to be like really, really interesting. So thank you for listening along, and I hope that you'll join us in the next episode. Thank you. You've been listening to yet another episode of the Hello Firstname Podcast. Remember that all models discussed in this podcast can be downloaded and are free to use. The original book, Hello Firstname, can likewise be downloaded as either the full audiobook or as a written abstract. All links are in the show notes. The podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, the omnichannel marketing automation platform, Agilic. Visit www.agilic.com for more information.